February 17th, regular meeting. Roll call.
Mr. Arndt?
Present.
Mr. Dana?
Present.
Ms. Fisher?
Here.
Mrs. Metzler?
Here.
And Mrs. Ortiz?
Present.
Are we in compliance?
Yes, we are.
Let's stand for the pledge.
To the flag of the United States of America and to
the republic for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, is there any correspondence?
Yes, we do have, I'm sorry, we do not have, I do not have any correspondence this evening.
I have none.
Okay, at this time, we'll have agenda modification.
Yes, we do have a few agenda modifications for this. There's a new number 8. Number 9. Old 8 is now number 10. Old 9 is now number 11. And old 10 is now number 12.
And I have one additional modification to that number 8, where we're adding one fund. I have an additional fund to add, so there will be 2 funds under number 8.
Okay, at this time, if there's any member of the public that would like to make a statement, please start with your name and your address. Okay, presentation of the 21-22 draft calendar.
Yes, I did provide you with a draft calendar. There's a draft A and a draft B for the calendars. If you notice, there's not a lot of difference between the 2 calendars. We start on the same date for both calendars, which is 1 week before Labor Day, August 30th, 2021. The winter breaks are different on A and B. I'll things about that in just a moment. There's also the spring break, which is the last week in March and the first day of April, and that's consistent with the county. And then the Easter break is different on calendar A, which has the Good Friday and Easter Monday. The other one is just the Good Friday. And then the ending dates are slightly different due to the breaks. A ending on June 9th of 2022 and B ending on June 3rd of 2022. I know often I have looked at the calendars and discussed the calendars with the other superintendents. Again, theirs are in the same status that our calendar is right now, in that they are introducing them to their public. The start dates that all of the Ashtabula County schools are looking at would be within a week. We have a that are looking at the week before, either the 23rd or 24th. 2 that are looking at the same date as we are, including us, which would be August 30th, and 1 looking at August 31st as a start date. 5 districts are looking at a full 2-week winter break. Also addressing another option with their board also for that winter break. So I just wanted to kind of give you a little comparison of what's out there and what other districts are looking at. We'll be sending this out to our teaching staff and classified staff so that they can provide their input on this beginning tomorrow after the presentation this evening.
Do we have anything about ATEC or what they're doing or no?
Nothing that's official, but they would be that week before right now, 1 week before us.
Okay. And what are they doing for the winter break? 2 full weeks or?
2 full weeks, but again, that's unofficial because they haven't presented that calendar yet.
I got you. So this is just to present it to the public and we're not voting on it yet, correct?
Can I ask a question? There's no districts that we're aware of that are thinking of starting after Labor Day? County?
There are none.
Okay.
No. The week before or 4 days before was the closest to Labor Day.
Okay, thank you.
There are two sets of minutes for approval. A regular
moved.
session on January 20th and a special session on February 10th.
So moved.
Second,
Any discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Arndt,
Yes.
Mr. Dana,
yes.
Ms. Fisher,
Yes.
Mrs. Metzler,
Yes.
and Mrs. Ortiz.
Yes.
Treasurer's financial report.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Dana,
Yes.
Ms. Fisher,
Yes.
Mrs. Metzler,
Yes.
Mrs. Ortiz.
Yes.
And Mr. Arndt.
Yes.
Approval of invoices.
Move.
Second.
Second,
Roll call?
Ms. Fisher,
Yes.
Mrs. Metzler,
Yes.
Mrs. Ortiz.
Yes.
Mr. Arndt.
Yes.
And Mr. Dana.
yes.
Informational items.
You have the current investment report. In addition, I want to report on the fourth quarter 2020 school district income tax distribution. It was received on January 29th, 21, in the amount of $819,392.50 net of fees and interest. This was $93,337 more than what was forecasted, and at 24.6% of the certified annual collection amount, it fell in the middle of the top range. If you recall, as we were forecasting forward, we were kind of staying at the 1% less than the top of the middle range. So we were, again, in the middle of the top range. This puts us at $66,497 more than the first three distributions that were forecasted in fiscal year 21. So we're ahead after three distributions with one more distribution in April. We are ahead of what has been forecasted by almost $66,500. So that's fairly good news. And again, if you recall, our forecast was reduced 7.5% because of COVID over what had originally been forecasted last year. So we're a little bit ahead of that reduction.
Legislative report.
Thank you. At the end of January, the ODE announced preliminary district-by-district calculations for the second round of ESSER funds, for elementary and secondary school emergency relief funds. Congress passed legislation in December to provide an additional $54.3 billion to the ESSER fund, of which Ohio received $1.99 billion. Governor DeWine signed an executive order at the end of January, partially restoring the K-12 payments for school districts and formalizing a $390 million state spending cut for fiscal year 21. Since the beginning of fiscal year 21, foundation payments were made at fiscal year 2020 levels as a result of cuts ordered in May of 2020. As a result of the new order, the K-12 education will see a net $140 million reduction for the fiscal year 21, as opposed to $300 million reduction for fiscal year 2020. This means that schools will receive funding at levels above what they had expected for this fiscal year, beginning with their first February payment. For the Geneva School District, the estimated fiscal year 21 reduction was just a little over 433,000. But with the new executive order, the reduction is now 237,000, almost 238, a difference of 195,537, which equates to a per pupil reduction of $89.68. DeWine started the budget process for the 22-23 biennium by announcing his executive budget proposal. Education-related investments for fiscal year 22 and fiscal year 23 include roughly $13.4 billion in total disbursements from the ODE. student wellness and success funds will continue to receive funding that totals $500 million in fiscal year 22 and $600 million in fiscal year 23. Recently approved federal K-12 stimulus funds of $2 billion and $1.6 billion to support child nutrition are also incorporated in the budget numbers. The executive budget proposal does not include a school funding formula, and DeLine has indicated that legislature will lead on those proposals. Additionally, the governor announced $200 million in broadband access expansion, $50 million to help with broadband affordability, and an effort to guarantee that all kids have access to computer science education in their schools. The proposal also includes the Ed Choice expansion program, based Ed Choice vouchers, and they would be receiving $92.18 million per year, a $7.1 million increase, which has increased from 200% of the federal poverty level to 250%, and $20.6 million for charter school facilities, and $54 million per year, up from the current $30 million per year, for an incentive fund for charter schools that meet certain quality criteria. There was a lot of new legislation introduced in, well, basically since our last meeting, but mostly in the month of February by both the House and the Senate. Some of those bills introduced, or most of those bills introduced, have already gone to sponsor testimony hearings in committee, so they're moving pretty quickly this new year. House Bill 1 was introduced to create a new school funding formula. House Bill 2 to establish a residential broadband expansion program. 6, to modify the laws governing school nurses who have a bachelor's degree and pharmacy technician trainees who are enrolled in an approved career technical school program. House Bill 34, to require public and private schools to transmit a transferred student's records within 5 school days. House Bill 40, to waive state testing requirements for the 2021 school year, require the ODE to seek a federal waiver from testing and provide exemptions from state report cards and other provisions related to test results. House Bill 43, to permanently authorize public bodies to meet via teleconference and video conference. House Bill 48, to expressly incorporate changes in the Internal Revenue Code into Ohio law as it relates to changes in the federal adjusted gross income that impacts school districts that levy income taxes. House Bill 54, to dissolve academic distress commissions and to establish improvement plans for certain low-performing school buildings. House Bill 67, to waive state testing requirements for 2021 school year and require ODE to seek a federal waiver. The difference from the one that I just mentioned before is that the other one deals with the report cards, eliminating the report cards. House Bill 73, regarding the college and work-ready assessment system, to require school districts to form work groups to evaluate the amount of time that students are spending on testing and to eliminate retention under the 3rd grade reading guarantee. House Bill 82, to remove the requirement that students take a nationally standardized college and career readiness assessment for high school graduation. House Bill 100, to dissolve existing academic distress commissions and to repeal the law on the creation of new commissions. And House Bill 105, regarding abuse prevention with respect to age-appropriate student instruction in child sexual abuse and sexual violence prevention, and in-service staff training in child sexual abuse prevention. The Senate has introduced 4 new bills, so have either been passed by the Senate in early February or have moved on to sponsor testimony. Senate Bill 8, to establish the residential broadband expansion program. Senate Bill 17, to make eligible changes to the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, SNAP, and to make changes to the requirements of the SNAP electronic benefit cards. Senate Bill 23, to expressly allow the use of cameras for images and videos of illegally passing a stopped school bus and establish a civil penalty when a driver who illegally passes a school bus cannot be identified, to designate the month of August as School Bus Safety Awareness Month, and to designate this act as the School Bus Safety Act. And finally, Senate Bill 37, to change education law for the 2021 school year to provide school districts continued flexibility with graduation requirements and assessments during COVID. So that was a lot. A lot of those are carryovers from the last, basically the last year. A lot of the same topics have been discussed, although it seems like they're even further ahead than they were last year in the entire year in just the first 2 months. And I'll do it this month.
Amber, I have a couple of questions. I lost you on some of the numbers. And I know that you'll give us a report via email coming up here shortly. But how much are they increasing charter school funding? And how much is it costing our public schools? I did not get that.
Well, this was just the proposal for the budget, and what they were saying for the charter schools was 20.6 million for the facilities and 54 million up from the current 30 million for an incentive fund for the charter schools.
Okay.
So they didn't actually say what that increase was for the 54 million, but or up from 30 million, but the 20.6 they did not mention how much of an increase that was.
And how much are we losing, or are public schools losing, or is this just a matter of we lose it based on if a child leaves our district and goes to a charter school? We may not know that. I'm just asking if that was discussed.
It was not.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, ATEC report. The enrollment this year is proceeding quite well, considering there are no in-house visits. The school has been sending representatives out to various high schools, and at the current time, there have been 313 new applications sent out. Last year, at about this time, there were about 350. However, two schools, Lakeside and I believe Edgewood, have not been talked to as of yet. And they are continuing to get more applications from schools that they have visited in the past. Total enrollment, including potential returning students at this point, is 585 students. They had the skills competition last year at ATEC, where they had students from the Northeast Ohio come out and show their proficiency in their various disciplines. This year, of course, that couldn't happen, and they had to kind of reduce it down to more of a paper testing. However, the results are hot off the presses, and it appears that ATEC received 8 medals, 2 of them gold, 3 silvers, and 3 bronze. So congratulations to those folks. Okay, superintendent's report.
Thank you, Ms. Fisher. We're going to begin tonight. I have representatives from the academic boosters in Gamba here to provide an update on their group's activities. As you know, the many challenges that we have faced, these are booster groups that come in contact with our student athletes and other students that are involved in musical groups, in band, and academically throughout the year. So these groups have faced many challenges also as they've continued to try to find creative ways to fundraise and to continue many of the activities that we have. So tonight, via Zoom, we have Mrs. April Tetlow from the Academic Boosters. We'll begin with her.
Thanks for having me. Again, my name is April Tetlow, and I am the president of Geneva Academic Boosters Club. We are a small but dedicated group with a mission to promote, encourage, and recognize academic achievement, to foster academic improvement, and to inspire academic excellence of students in the Geneva area city schools. We would love to have more people involved. Our programs include top 10 academic awards for seniors, academic lamps and pins for sophomores, juniors, and seniors, with both support, outstanding writer award for juniors and seniors, teacher support for student projects and materials, academic awards support for middle school, support for GMS state testing, and staff teacher appreciation luncheons. As with other groups, we have had to adjust due to COVID. Previously, our signature fundraising event was the Adult Spelling Bee, but this had to be canceled due to the virus. We hope to bring it back next year. We recently distributed the GHS Lamps and Pins Awards for the students that maintained a 3.5 GPA or above. This year, instead of an assembly, we had the NHS students hand out the awards. We appreciate their assistance. To add a little fun, we added a raffle for a $25 gift certificate to Capo's Pizza. All recipients were automatically entered. There was a winner selected from each grade, and their names can be found on our website. For the middle school, we sent out congratulation emails to the merit roll students and are hoping to participate in congratulating the merit and honor roll students for the third quarter. We are looking forward to honoring the top 10 GHS seniors at graduation this year with the special graduation stoles, plaques, and scholarships for each. We also honor an outstanding student in the junior and senior class with the Writers Award. Our meetings are generally held the second Tuesday of the month via video conference. If anyone is interested in joining us, they can find our contact information on the website at www.genevaabc.com. We would love to have you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mrs. Tetlow, on behalf of the Geneva School District and the Board of Education, again, thank you for all of your work and the work of your group in highlighting the many successes that we have in the academic area for the Geneva schools. So thank you.
Thank you.
We also missed the spelling bee.
Hopefully next year.
We don't miss the dancing.
I was planning the chicken dance too.
Oh.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you. Next up, because we have one that could not join us and we'll save the athletic boosters for last. Next up will be Mrs. Marty Milliken-Dixon with Gamba. Uh-oh. Was she disconnected?
I think so.
Okay. We'll go on with the athletic boosters, then Mr. Mercajon, if she comes back on, you can admit her. With athletic boosters, they wanted to share that they appreciate this time to address the board on our last year's activities, and they apologize for not being able to join in person or via Zoom due to work and sports commitments. We have had many changes with our athletic events. We had a game scheduled for last night that was moved to tonight, and so Kristen Bowser, who was going to present, is currently at that game. She mentioned that their bylaws list their objectives and support the athletic programs at Geneva. We currently meet on the second Monday of every month at 7 p.m. Over the past year, we have met both in person in the high school cafeteria and online when meetings in person were not advised. We encourage and welcome anyone to attend. The current officers for the athletic boosters are President Kristen Yost, Vice President Tiffany Warner, Secretary Mickey DiGiacomo, Treasurer Kristen Bowser, and Concessions Manager Bobby Joe Park. Jen Crosley also serves as a liaison to the schools for requests from coaches for funding and does a great job bringing projects to the group. To give an update on our last fiscal year, which ended in July, our larger projects for the year were the awards and letters, $6,900, the dugouts, $6,700, school signage and scoreboard, $6,200, uniforms, $5,000, scholarships, $3,000, and tournament meals and travel costs, $2,300. Costs are running at a similar level this fiscal year, with the exception of the dugout project, where we paid most of our costs for that as a one-time project. To support these costs, we hold fundraisers and also operate concessions. During the last fiscal year, Wine and Food Bingo was a big success, and we pushed our spring fundraiser back to the fall due to not being able to hold an in-person event. We finished the year with an increase to our cash amount of only about $1,000, which indicated we paid out roughly all of what we raised during the year. The past year has been a challenge for support groups as well as our athletes and administrators we support. In the last completed fiscal year, we raised about $15,000 from concession activities. This year, that amount is under $3,000 as the Spire agreement changed and COVID forced limits on attendance for sports. For winter, we agreed with the schools that concessions would not occur. Fortunately, we were able to do an online fundraiser this fall that was close to the amount of last year's fall fundraiser. We also did smaller fundraisers for masks as well as one for Christmas wreaths this year. The pandemic has also created many changes in our operations this year. Our previous fundraisers and our upcoming one in the spring will primarily be online. We have also added capabilities to accept online payments through Venmo. Our spring fundraiser will be a drawing held March 28th, and we will be raffling off 6 main prizes, including a lottery basket, a winery basket, Dime Local basket, Harbor gift certificate, Sport and Sports gift certificate, and a yearbook. Further information will be available at our Facebook site, and tickets can be purchased from any booster member. We greatly appreciate all the support for our fundraising efforts during these unique times. Again, we express our appreciation both to our community and school system for their support of our operations through the years and support of our athletic activities in our own school system. We look forward to when we can all attend athletic activities and support our athletes in person again safely. So again, that was presented from the athletic boosters by Mrs. Kristen Bowser, the treasurer. And again, my thanks to the athletic boosters. I know this has been a difficult year as I attend many events where you normally see those individuals actively involved with the activities and selling concessions and many of the spirit wear items that are available. You did not have that this year. So again, they've been working in the background doing everything that they can again to support our athletes and continue to provide the support for our schools. And finally, from Gamba, Mrs. Marty Milliken-Dixon.
You're muted, Marty. Marty, can you hear me? There you go.
Okay, I'm sorry, I apologize. Thank you for having me, Mr. Gugula and board members. Where was I? Right, Marty Milliken-Dixon, president of Gamba for 2021. And yes, it's been an interesting year. Let me just start by saying a little bit about our mission. Geneva Music Boosters strives to enhance the music curriculum of Geneva schools, to further their music programs, and to financially support the music departments, which will in turn promote music in the children's lives. We work very hard at this. We are a small and dedicated group, like April mentioned earlier about the academic boosters. But we are there every week, every second Wednesday of the month at 7 o'clock via Zoom. And when we can, of course, go back in person, we meet in the band room. And anyone's welcome to join us. We are struggling with fundraising, as everyone else is. What we are doing is a sponsorship drive. We have written up a sponsorship drive flyer, letter, and distribute it throughout the community. We put it through the Geneva Chamber of Commerce, and Sue Ellen Foote was very kind in distributing that for us, and we're taking online donations with that. Prior to that, we had done our pepperoni roller fundraiser, which nets us about $5,000. We did that pretty successfully, very little contact. They waited to their car, the students delivered out to the cars, as opposed to anyone coming into the band room. That worked very, very well. Let me see, what else did I want to touch on? Our biggest award of the year is yet to be determined for this year, of course. The John Philip Souza Award is a small scholarship and an award for one student who's exemplary musician and intends to study music in their further education. You can find our information at our website, Geneva Area Music Boosters Association.org. We do take online donations, contributions, payments, of that sort of thing. And we hope that we can continue to support the music programs. Mrs. Mather has been so flexible and so adaptable with her curriculum, I think, and not to because it's from my point of view as the GAMBA president, but not to undermine anyone else's difficulties, of course. But musicians have, I think, a special difficulty in these times. The whole point, as with athletics, is to get together and do your thing. And we've not been able to get together and do our thing. So in the music classrooms, Mr. Dident and Mrs. Mather have both worked very hard on distance learning with the students and trying to form musical groups that are coherent and that are a pleasure to listen to and to watch, through these trying times of having to do that 6 feet apart. So I commend them for all of those efforts. They have been very, very dedicated to the students and what they need, and have worked to change as they need to change. That's all I have. I want to thank you all for having me, and have a nice evening.
Thank you, Marty.
Thank you, and a special thank you to GAMBA. Again, I know this has been a difficult year for all of our booster groups, but I know that you've been there, and whatever has been needed, that you have offered your support. I'd be remiss if I did not say, after having a father that was a longtime choral music director in Geneva, that having the choir perform and the band perform from the end of last year and all of this year, not having those performances has been something that I have dearly missed. So I'm looking forward to those days when we can return and have those concerts and those students have that chance to show off their tremendous talent. So again, thank you for everything that you do, and we're looking forward to those days again.
If I can just add, I live where I can hear the band when they're practicing outside for football games. And one day last spring or last fall, I could hear them. So I got in the car and drove over, sit in the parking lot and listen to them marching around, and it was really good. I really enjoyed that.
Thank you.
Next up, we have our Geneva Pride positives, and I wanted to share some of the positive items that are going on in the district. For Ostenburg, Clark, and Geneva Platte Spencer, again, this is the COVID edition, so they've combined some of their thoughts as all of the schools are participating in various activities over the past month. Valentine's celebrations brought some normalcy to our school environment. Students created Valentines, enjoyed some crafts, along with various other activities to bring Valentine's Day into the classroom. The students were really excited to have that be part of their day. All elementary buildings also celebrated Groundhog's Day, Black History Month, and the 100th day of school this month. Conferences were held this past month via Zoom or phone conference. The teachers had a full conference schedule, even though with Google Classroom, they are in constant communication with our parents. Due to yesterday's Calamity Day, the final conference day for some teachers is still being rescheduled. And also for the elementary schools, thank you to all the parent-teacher organizations for providing the teachers with dinner on conference nights. The teachers appreciate all that you do for them. At Geneva Middle School, Reality Day is coming to Geneva Middle School this Friday. Geneva Middle School is piloting the first ever virtual reality, which was created by Abby Averill from the Ohio State University Extension Office and Stacy Zappatelli from ATEC, several local volunteers and business owners. The day will begin with a math lesson in financial literacy as students budget the salary of their desired careers, followed by virtual visits around the county of Ashtabula to deal with businessmen and women as they make purchase selections for housing, utilities, transportation, insurance, childcare, food, clothing, communications, chance, life's challenges and rewards, entertainment, charitable contributions, and payments for education if applicable. We are very excited for this opportunity and look forward to our students' yearly visit to the real village and the real world of work. Geneva High School is also proud to report that they had 102 students that received straight A's during the second grading period. At Geneva High School, on Wednesday, February 10th, the 2020-21 Quiz Bowl kicked off its league competition with matches against both Lakeside and St. John. Geneva fell just short of claiming victories, but our students had a blast getting the opportunity to compete. Between the two teams, we have 16 students signed up, and most have been attending our weekly practices. Of these 16, only 5 have competed in the past, so the interest is definitely growing. Our next match will be held at Geneva versus Conneaut and Edgewood. So good luck to the Geneva Quiz Bowl team. And this was a message from a Geneva High School alumni, Isabel Wilms, from the class of 2016. I am currently interning for Ohio Senator Rob Portman, as well as for the Department of State in the Bureau of Near East Affairs. As an intern for the senator, I speak with constituents about current issues and policies, work on special projects, have the ability to observe Senate proceedings such as the impeachment trial, and much more. As an intern for the Department of State, I hold a special security clearance because I monitor and analyze political, military, and economic developments and trends in Iraq. I then take these observations and develop and propose resolutions of policy to help facilitate efforts to achieve U.S. foreign policy objectives towards Iraq. These internships have given me instrumental insight into how foreign policy is shaped by Congress and the new administration. I am also working on my master's in U.S. foreign policy and national security at American University's School of International Service. So I wanted to share that with the board. I know often we think of some of the interesting things that our Geneva graduates do once they leave our halls, and to get a message back that's shared about some of the experiences that are going on, especially when you see the depth of what she's experiencing in this internship. I just wanted to share that with the board as just a special note.
Mr. Kuzla, I have a question. Mr. Anderson, the 102 students who received an A, out of how many students?
Middle school right now is about 555 students.
Okay, and
those 102 were your straight A's, all students that had all A's.
Straight A's, all A's are
okay.
Can you repeat the numbers because we can't hear online? So what are the numbers?
Mr. Anderson said they have 555 students in middle school, and 102 of those, Richard, got straight A's.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, they got 2 A's.
Straight A's.
Straight A's, all A's.
All A's. In the second.
All A's.
All A's in the
Yep.
second grading period, yep.
Go ahead.
That's correct. All straight A's. Every grade on a report card is an A.
Explain to Richard, he's the one, he didn't have it with us.
Yeah, 102 students received straight A's on the report card during the second grading period. I try to keep writing my positive reports consistently. We usually have between 95 and 115 students each grading period achieving straight A's.
Okay, we'll have to work on that microphone at some point in the future, okay?
Could you hear what he said, Richard?
It was very muffled. So I want to make sure for members of the public here that they're able to hear these things. And maybe I'm the only one with a problem, but I had a very hard time hearing that.
Sure, I can try it again. Richard, is this clearer for you?
That's much better. Thank you.
Okay, so each time we have a grading period close, I do try to report in the positives how many students we have achieving straight A's on their report card. Our number fluctuates between 95 and 115 students. This grading period specifically, we had 102 students out of approximately 550 students enrolled at the middle school achieve straight A's on their report card.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Alex, can you pass on a well done?
Absolutely.
Students and staff?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Weatherholt, it says that the next match will be held at Geneva versus Conneaut and Edgewood. Do we have a ballpark time frame, month, date, something?
No, I don't have that information, but I surely can get it out to the board. I can send you guys all an email on that.
Okay, thank you. I'm good.
And I'd just like to make a comment about the reality day at the middle school. When I did it in person, I was in charge of the chance booth, which was anything from a dent in your car with no insurance to when we lottered. And these kids are so funny when they come in. They're supposed to have a weekly paycheck, and then they get a house and a car and a family, and then they try to budget. And they can get a second job if they miss budget. I had one student that came in and he wanted to divorce his wife, sell his house, and live in a van down by the river. And another one asked if he could do something with his kids and wife so he could join the military. And I think these kids really do get their first wake-up call as to what adulthood is really like, because they are just kind of stunned at how much it costs to live and how a paycheck really doesn't go all that far, even though it looks like a lot of money when you put it in the bank. So that is an excellent program that they put on here. And I hope they can get as much out of it virtually as they were in person.
I know there were a number of people that put in tremendous amounts of time to try to at least present the program in a virtual format. So we're looking forward to it, and I know Mr. Anderson will fill us in on the final outcomes.
Wonderful.
The next item is I just wanted to give you a very brief overview of the district testing schedule. Right now we are on schedule to have our testing here in April and May. There was a little bit of fluctuation with the dates. So you can see the testing windows for the district that are on the top of the page. The ELA from April 12th to April 30th. And then the Math, Social Studies, Science, the district window is April 23rd to May 14th. For the elementaries, I listed all of the dates, may not be accurate for each building because they may slightly vary depending on the building schedule. But you can see for each of the grades, 3rd, 4th, and 5th, for ELA, Math, and then Science for grade 5, that there'll be multiple days. They'll have a part 1 and a part 2. So there are other dates that would be there, but I want to at least give you an idea. And then also this year, there will be a remote day, which in the fall, we had our remote students that are currently online, come into the building on a Wednesday when we normally don't have our students, and that's the support day for online. Those students actually will be testing, they'll come into the building on that Wednesday, their scheduled date to test. So you can see there's a lot of scheduling and a lot involved in this year's testing schedule at the elementary level. At the middle school, I did give you the windows for the ELA, the English Language Arts, Math, and Science. So you can see the windows that those tests would be given for the middle school. And at the high school, there are dates for both the end of the course exams, if those will still exist in that capacity. And then the ACT, which will be in the building on March 10th. And then the AP exams, there's the week schedule from from May 30th to May 14th, that those tests will occur during that period of time. So you can see that once we hit mid-April to mid-May, there will be multiple tests that will be occurring, both for students coming into the building that may not normally be in the building and students that are currently in person. So you can see there are many testing days that are coming up as we approach the the month of April. So just wanted to share that with the board. If there's any other changes in testing, I will be sharing that at a future meeting, but just wanted to kind of give you an idea of what happens here in the spring as we approach the spring testing.
So these tests are to evaluate the student, the school, and the teacher?
These would be the tests that are typically given for the state report card.
Okay.
The students will get their results of how they achieved on each of the test areas, if they were proficient, above proficient, or if they were below the proficient level. Parents will get a report. We will get district reports for each building. That will report the scores and the proficient level of all of our students at those grade levels, 3rd, 4th, 5th at the elementary, and then our 6, 7, 8 at the middle school. And then, I'm sorry, students' parents will get a report, we'll get a report, and then for the teachers, they'll get their grade. So any students that are part of their classroom, they would see how those students performed on this particular test.
Does any part of this test, the grade from this test, reflect on the teacher?
It has in the past. We are in a safe harbor in that these were not counting for the report card because of the closure that occurred and the time that students were away from their natural instruction model. So there won't be as much that will reflect on the teacher because the evaluations system has changed over the last 2 years because we were suspended last year and this year again being suspended. So not as much will rely or will be reflective of the teacher's performance.
I guess my concern is we're still using the same testing system, but last month they voted to do away with teacher evaluations, but here now we're showing that even though our students are still being tested, they're still being looked at, they're still being required, but our teachers are not being evaluated. That's why I asked, what portion of this test reflects on the teacher?
We'll still get results back from the teachers, but there won't be a accountability portion that's directly related to the test.
But our students are being held accountable.
Correct.
But not our teachers.
Well, the teachers are being held accountable.
Not doing evaluation.
Just like the students are not being held accountable, there won't be a retention for the 3rd grade unless the reading teacher or the principal would convene and say they are not ready to go on. So some of the accountability measures have been suspended, and typically there's no other accountability measure for the students except for the score that they receive. They're not retained except at the 3rd grade for ELA. They're not placed in a different classroom. Again, it's a measure in time for one test that we can use any of those scores for the students as they move on to the next grade level.
So the only time in a perfect world that the tests or the scores from these tests are used to retain a student is in the 3rd grade.
Correct.
So they don't move to 4th grade.
Only for the ELA area, the English Language Arts. If they are not proficient on the reading test in either the fall administration or the spring administration, they also even offer them a 3rd opportunity to take that. And usually there's also an alternative assessment that the district can use that are assessments that are allowable by the state of Ohio. If they actually meet the score requirement on that, they would not be retained. But the 3rd grade 3rd grade guarantee, if they were not proficient prior to the closure last year when we suspended testing, or this year, they could be retained if they did not meet the required proficient level.
But not this year, as a result of the test.
Unless, and that's what we voted on last month, unless the reading teacher, the teacher of record, and the principal would determine that the student was not ready to go on. They could make that determination.
Okay. Thank you.
Can I ask one question?
Sure.
I guess it doesn't really, it's not completely about this, but I've just been thinking, and I just wanted to clarify, are we planning to keep Wednesdays as a support day through the end of the school year?
We are, we had really looked at possibly changing that as we got to the second semester. When we realized the number of online students, families that did not feel comfortable having their students return to in-person, and needing to have a support day, a planning day that's available for those online students, since we're providing the instruction, I thought it was important to keep it in place. We had hoped that the semester we might be able to go back to a 5-day period of time.
And that's not affecting us as far as having to go longer in the school year or having to add hours or anything?
No, it's not. This year, much of that was waived.
Okay.
Because they knew schools had different plans. And one of the items that just came out from the governor's office when they were talking about the vaccine for staff is you had to be back in person or at least in a hybrid model to be eligible. So you probably have seen that on the news that they talked about some of the school districts like Cleveland Metropolitan, Akron, that have not been back in person, have only been online or remote.
Because there was just a flash today on, I think it was Yahoo News, that said President Biden plans to have all schools back in person 5 days a week. And I just didn't know if that any way affected us.
Not that I've heard.
Okay.
I'm sure there's discussions, but again, schools in what their plans look like right now, their in-person instruction, their online instruction, their remote instruction, vary across the country.
And I know this is way out in the future, but our goal is to start next school year back at a normal 5-day. That's our hope.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, our goal would be to come back in a 5-day-a-week in-person model, but also offer some alternatives to students. Now that many have had the taste of online instruction, again, we're looking at what can we offer our students, because we don't want to lose those students to a charter school or another online school if that is their preferred method. So again, we're looking very closely at that, how we're going to be able to provide that.
Okay, I would just strongly hope that the students that are in person do get the 5 days back. Because I know that, 4 days is good, but 5 days is better.
Right.
Anything else on testing?
Thank you.
Okay. I recommend that the board approve the following students as having met requirements for early graduation.
Second,
Roll call, or any discussion?
I always just like to know a little bit about what these students' future plans are, if we know.
You know.
Let me pull out just to see if I made any other
On the back of each one.
additional notations on the letters that they have submitted. I know one of the students, Emma, had wanted to focus on attending Kent State University, get her associate's degree in business. Again, she was looking to get all of her additional credits that she would need so that she would be able to graduate early, and looks like she'll be on task. So it looks like she wants to get her associate's degree and didn't really specify what she would like to do with that after. Oh, I apologize.
I haven't.
And we had two other we had two others that, Anne, who was planning to go to Lakeland Community College, and then she would like to be a veterinarian technician program, or like to go to the veterinarian technician program at Columbus State College after attending Lakeland. And also get an associate's degree in business. So it sounds like she would kind of like to have some dual degrees as she attends both Lakeland and Columbus State College. And then Grace had submitted her, and she is looking on attending Eastern Gateway for a degree in business and sales. And she would like to she plans to live in and move to the Columbus area with her twin sister Ann and continue her education and work full-time. It sounds like both have a passion with showing horses and photography, and would like to continue doing those, following those passions as they continue.
Thank you.
Roll call?
Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
Mr. Arndt?
Yes.
Mr. Dana?
Yes.
And Ms. Fisher?
Yes. A recommendation that the board approve the revision of the Student Wellness and Successfulness Plan. The plan is in collaboration with the Ashtabula County Educational Service Center.
We don't have it, do we?
Move.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Discussion.
Yes, I just wanted to add a little bit in regards to this. I provided the plan to you last month at the meeting. This was an item that was tabled due to the agreement that we had, community counseling. Since that meeting, I have been in contact with community counseling. I've also been in contact with our legal counsel. Community counseling has been in contact with their legal counsel. Some language was submitted by our legal counsel to them. They took a look at it, had some new language that they wanted to propose. Since then, the two attorneys have talked kind of the beginning of February on February 2nd. The two attorneys had a chance to talk, and there's been some language that has gone back and forth between the two. I tried to see if they would have the agreement to us prior to our board meeting. In a follow-up, our legal counsel had contacted the community counseling legal counsel. They were not in town, they were out of town, and they had not finished the conversation with community counseling. So the only part of the recommendation I'm looking at is just the approval of the plan. We would not do anything further with community counseling until we get the agreement completed, and then I would present the agreement at our next meeting in March. Hopefully we have that for you with language that the board would approve of.
I have concerns with how they send their people there. It seems to be that it's not consistent. It's inconsistent as far as who they send and how many, every time the student has to use them, it's a different person. I have concerns with how their people are vetted and who they send, where we don't have a say, but we're entering into a contract that allow these people to come into our school. And what type of services that we actually get out of them, and whether it's worth it, whether it's worth the dollar amount. So if it's just to go forth with the plan and not to enter into a contract, then yes, but I would say that there needs to be other stipulations which we can discuss later. That's all.
And at this time, it would just be to go forward with the plan, for approval of the plan. We would not continue any additional services with community counseling until we had an agreement that was in place and we could address any of those other questions.
Any other discussion? Question? Okay, roll call.
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
Mr. Arndt?
Yes.
Mr. Dana?
Yes.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
And Mrs. Metzler?
Yes. Okay, item 6, various personnel actions.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Arndt?
Yes.
Mr. Dana?
Yes.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
And Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
Item 7, approval of a volunteer basketball coach.
So moved.
Second.
I'm sorry, baseball coach. Any discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Dana?
Yes.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
And Mr. Arndt?
Yes.
Item 8, a fund to be appropriated according to the adopted budget for a school bus purchase.
I'll move.
Second.
Now, there is a second fund to be added
Right,
to
so
this.
we have the school bus purchasing grant. As you may recall, we applied for this last year in March, and between March and May. We went out with bids. We just received those buses, and now we're ready to apply this grant through the state of Ohio. So we need to establish the funds so that we can pay part of the cost of those 2 buses. Actually, one particular bus, this amount will be applied to $40,480.85, and then the rest will be taken out of our permanent improvement fund. The other fund that I added here, unfortunately, a young man died well before his time, losing a battle to cancer. I think he's well known in the area. He was a 1999 graduate of Geneva High School, and he was part of 3 national championship teams while playing linebacker at Mount Union College. The family wanted to continue what he's been doing, which he has made numerous donations to the schools to help with pay to participate fees. So the family had suggested in his obituary that contributions be made in Mark Brace's name to Geneva Area City Schools to help reduce the cost for sports pay to participate fees to the individuals. So with that money coming in, I wanted to set up a fund to account for that money, and then from that fund, it will be applied, and we'll work out how that will be applied. But I wanted to capture it in this fund so they know that it's going to be used for sports pay to participation fees.
That's very generous of them.
What's the name?
Mark.
Mark Brace. Mark Brace.
Okay, did we have a motion
Yes, we have a motion and
and
a
a
second.
second? Okay, roll call?
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
Mr. Arndt?
Yes.
And Mr. Dana?
Yes.
Ms. Fisher, before we move on to the next item, I do want to send our condolences to the Brace family. Again, Mark was an integral part of many of our athletic teams and many of the community events and activities and youth participation in sports in our community. So again, our condolences go out to his family. And as an Eagle, he continues to soar in our hearts and mind because he was truly an inspiration in Geneva, and he will be dearly missed. So I just wanted to share that.
Okay, approval for the maintenance department to advertise and sell any bushes or trees removed from the property in front of the high school. Proceeds would be deposited in the general fund, and any unsold would be discarded.
Moved.
Second.
Discussion?
Which trees are these, or bushes?
Yeah, I'll quickly explain. The house that's in front of the high school, as we've removed some bushes and some of the shrubbery that's around the house so that we do not have water problems and it keeps out of the gutter areas and things like that and any damage to the block in the house. We had some bushes that were red buds that ran right along the front. We were going to just take those out and dig up that area so that they were not causing any future damage to the house or to the foundation. We had a person in the community that approached us wondering what we would do with those. And again, our intent was just to take them out, not spend a lot of time digging them out or trying to transplant them. The individual had approached and said, you know, would we be willing to take those out or them take them out? And I said we could not give away any property, you know, because that being board and district property, that we could not just give something away. So I would have to share this with the board. If there was the intent, we could advertise, and if they wanted to bid on those bushes or shrubberies, instead of us just destroying them, that they could do that, and that we try to come up with timing. I guess it would have to happen prior to kind of the end of March, early April, so I wanted to get it on the agenda. If we can't take them out and transplant them, you know, we couldn't, but if we can do it and someone could bid on those and transplant them themselves on their property, I want to at least provide the opportunity.
Thank you for that clarification. Okay. Thank you.
She is passionate about this because she approached me about this, so.
Roll call?
Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
Mr. Arndt?
Yes.
Mr. Dana?
Yes.
And Ms. Fisher?
Yes. Other.
I have one other item that I would like to share. As we talked often about our plan, not only at the beginning of the year, but you probably have heard the governor discuss at a recent press conference, February 9th, about schools, asking schools and districts to work with their community to help students advance and make up for any learning that they may have lost during the pandemic. He's requesting that schools and districts design plans to meet the needs of students by either ending the school year later than scheduled, beginning the new school year earlier, extending the school day next year, summer programs, tutoring, other remote options could be considered, but he wants every school district to develop a plan and provide that plan to the public and General Assembly no later than April 1st. The plan should include, and there will be a template that will be developed by the Ohio Department of Education, but it should include impacted students, how we would identify these students, what are our most vulnerable populations, what the needs are in the district, what are the resources in our budget for the plan, what some of our approaches that we may use. Is it going to be a summer program, tutoring, remote options, expansion of the year or day? What some of the partnerships might look like, working with educational service centers, the libraries, after-school programs, civic organizations, and then alignment, including how the plan may align to our student wellness and success funds, our improvement plans, or graduation plans. So again, those are all elements of this plan. I just wanted to really share with the board that right now we are in process of putting this plan together. At the March meeting, I will be sharing that plan prior to sharing it with the governor's office, the General Assembly, and the community. So I will present that at our next board meeting in March with the components that are being required. I've been on the phone talking with numerous providers that will be offering different online summer opportunities, in-person summer opportunities. We've been in conversation with ATEC, looking at what they may offer for our grade 9 through grade 12 students. Looking at some other options of again, providing not only online options, because I think there are some families that the online option isn't the best option. So trying to make sure that whatever the plan is, that it's has enough options for families. And do we need to look at transportation? How do we get students, if we have an in-person program over the summer, what kind of transportation would be needed? Could we provide meals, those kinds of things over this period of time? So it is in process. I just wanted to bring this up because it was something that was on the news. And if you watch the news, they've been talking about these plans that the governor is asking for. It isn't required right now, but so it's not mandatory, but it's likely going to have a requirement for a proposal coming up here relatively soon. So we are in process right now.
What's an estimated cost for this, and how are we paying for it? I'm assuming that the governor is going to provide funds for us to do this.
Well, we'll be able to use our ESSER 2 funds we did receive, and also many of these programs over the summer, anything that's tutoring or for school improvement, we could also use some of our student success and wellness funds. And I did have some budgeted already for the summer reading program, and when we had also looked at the before and after school programs, it would be at the elementary level for this coming school year.
And I ask this at every meeting, so I'll ask it tonight again. Are there any additional technology needs that we have?
We just purchased cameras for all of our elementary and middle school. Those already did arrive. We're continuing to look at other items that we will be purchasing, projectors, and I have had some other conversations with Mr. Bergard for some of the needs that we have, but we continue to make purchases to provide more resources to our teachers.
Thank you.
Mrs. Metzler?
Yes, briefly, I just wanted to mention to everyone that I was able to meet at the end of January with Laura Jones from our food service department. And I had a really good visit with her. I started the morning at the high school here observing their first service of lunch and just kind of watching how the students have to come through and all of the different protocols they have to follow now with COVID. And also to see how lean she really is on her personnel when it comes to her food service responsibilities. There's not very many people that are serving in the cafeterias, and they have a lot of extra work that they have to do with cleaning up in between the students. She mentioned to me that they're spending a lot more money to make the items sanitary now. So they can't necessarily, for example, they have to have lids on the cups, they have to have the apples in baggies, whereas before these weren't requirements, but these are requirements now because of COVID. There's no more self-service on non-packaged items. So she's got a lot more responsibilities for her people, and she's doing it with the same amount of people that she's done it with last year before all of this. We also talked a little bit about, and we see it every month in our board packet, about the reimbursement for lunches and breakfast. And we talked a little bit about the challenges that she's facing with that. And she's on conferences, and the other schools are showing the same struggles as we are. And she said that she really likes to, if there's another school that she hears about that's trying something different, she would really take that and try and run with it for us. But she said we're really all in the same boat. So I had a very enlightening conversation with Mrs. Jones. She is fantastic. I think I've always been impressed with her reports in the summertime, even when I was just a member of the public. And I got so much more information from her talking to her one-on-one, and I thought she was great. We went from high school to GPS for their lunch service, which with all of those elementary school kids and the spacing required there, they just did a fantastic job. She had Mrs. Guston out there cleaning tables in between the lunch service. I mean, it's just, there's aides in the school for students that are in there helping during the lunchtime, because she's got 2 cashiers, she's got 2 servers, she's got 1 helper, and that's all her food service personnel. So anybody else that needs to help are there within the school building. So And just the amount of work that they all do, and what's required of all of them because of the COVID protocols, it really is incredible that they can move those kids through the lines and through their lunchtime and as swiftly as they can. And there's no wasted time or people for food service. They work very hard, they work very quickly, and they have very limited time to get everything done. So it's very eye-opening. I appreciated my time with her, and all of the information that she was able to give me is very, very enlightening. And I hope next month I'll be able to move on to, or actually this month, because we've still got a couple weeks left, but somewhere over to the bus garage, whether I talk with maintenance, IT, some bus garage personnel that I'd like to get with next and kind of move through those departments as well. It's really good to get this information. It shows a whole behind the scenes kind of what's going on in the schools, different from in the classrooms.
Anyone else have anything? Okay, at this time, we'll have our second hearing of the public. Again, if you have something to say, please precede it by listing your name and your address. Okay, I recommend that the board hold an executive session to consider the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of a public employee or official, and preparing for, conducting, or reviewing negotiations or bargaining sessions with public employees concerning their compensation or other terms, conditions of their employment.
I'll move.
Second.
Roll call.
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
Mr. Arndt?
Yes.
Mr. Dana?
Yes.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
And Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
Okay, we will not be returning. We will not have any action being taken tonight. So thank you for attending our meeting.